Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we're here this week to talk about episode 291, A Name Not a Number, Part 2.
Correctamundo.
This episode first aired December 3rd of 1994, was written and directed by Phil Lawler, and it was track 6 on album 22, The Changing Times.
Interesting. So this episode...
Interesting?
I don't know.
I mean, that's essentially the same information as last week.
Yeah. This is, well, it's the same promo as last week?
No, this episode has its own promo.
Wow, look at you, part 2.
Yeah, and it does have the same cast as our previous week, but now we also have Will Ryan and Walker Edmondson pulling double duty. As Philby and Tom and Eugene and Mustafa. So,
and
fun.
Bart Rathbun.
No.
Nah, I know, but that would be really funny if it was. Well, I mean, without further ado, do you want to roll the promo?
Is that? I guess that's the show now.
I guess that's what we do.
Yeah,
well, we did the context.
We did so much context up top last time.
Yeah,
this episode, we're just getting down to business.
We're getting down. Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns.
All right, let's listen to the promo.
When Jason Whittaker believes his troubles are over, they come looking for him in Odyssey. Coming up on the next Adventure in Odyssey, Jason and his friend Tasha must fight to keep a deadly formula from falling into the wrong hands. Don't miss this exciting spy thriller next time on Adventures in Odyssey.
Yeah, so that's everything that last week's promo should have been.
Yeah, and also that was like all of the plot.
But it didn't give anything away though. It just gave the setup.
Yeah. No, yeah, that checks out. And like the music was pretty good. There wasn't too much going on there.
Yeah, no, they did more similar to like a Novacom music there.
Yeah,
or just
minimalist.
Yeah,
I like it.
As opposed to last week's clown music.
Yes. Although the clown music was nice. Definitely added some flair.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty good promo.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely up there. Although, the thing is, are the plain promos better than the ones that are just hilariously bad? Because the ones where it's like presumably...
There are a lot that fall into like the so bad it's good category.
Yeah. The only one that I remember that's like that is the one where it sounds like there's a guy watching TV and there's like a mouse that's like next to him and then starts talking to the camera.
Yes.
like I do remember that being a thing, and that's the gold standard.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Talking mouse wins. Yeah. So this episode, obviously, because it's a part 2, picks up right where the other one left off. Like there's no like, I mean, I'm sure on the radio there's a now Adventures in Odyssey, but there's nothing, no teasers, no whatever. And so we get Dawson,
right
Tasha, Jason, basically, like, I mean, they're in the castle, right? That's a castle?
Yeah.
Presumably?
It's picking up right where we left off.
Yeah, so they're in the
still
castle.
in the Interlaken Castle.
Yep. And Blackgaard is dead. And then basically Dawson, who had saved the day, starts talking about the Roku virus and how completely unstable it is.
Dawson?
Or I'm sorry, not Dawson. Who saves the day last episode? Was it Philby?
What? I mean, Philby and Donovan kind of like are the ones who bust in at the end.
Did I write all of my notes as... Okay, just the first one I wrote as Donovan. Oh, that's so weird.
His name is Donovan.
Yeah, I wrote it as Dawson.
Oh.
But just once.
Oh. Yes.
I'm so confused.
So Donovan and Philby kind of burst in last time, but Blackgaard's the one who really saved the day.
Yes. And he's declared dead, and shocker, still dead. In the beginning of this one.
Yeah, they explain that Mustafa is in custody, that Abdul got away, and that the European Security Agency will be taking care of Blackgaard.
Yeah. And then...
Jason says then, like, it's hard to believe he was an ESA agent, which is clearly a line for the audience, because there's no reason Jason should be saying that.
Yeah,
he
no,
met
Jason
this
has
dude
no suspect.
for 2 minutes in a jail cell, and the dude sacrificed his life to save Jason. So why is Jason like, hard to believe? Like, Tasha could say that because she knew him as this guy who bought teddy bears for his granddaughter, but Jason has no business saying that.
No, it's purely just, wit, basically, talking through Jason. Which is love that.
What would be even more skeptical and jerkish about it, whereas Jason just kind of sounds like surprised, but I believe it. Whereas Whit would be like
brooding.
Yeah,
cynicism. So they talk about Ruku virus being super unstable and it can't live without this chemical compound TA418. Basically, it's like Ruku is super unstable. It dies if it's exposed to air without TA418, and the only way to get the Ruku virus without, the TA418 is to have it straight injected to you. So, despite the fact that it doesn't really matter if they were to dump it into the water system, Blackgaard is still dead because he did get it shot straight into him. So,
right.
And then it's revealed that the T in TA418 stands for Tasha, because Tasha helped make it.
Yep. But then they destroyed parts of the formula. So she worked with Tesla to create TA418 and then destroyed parts of the formula because they were afraid that Tesla was going to turn out to be a bad person. Spoiler alert, he is.
Yeah.
And then, so that's kind of that. They then speculate that Blackgaard was the one who messaged Tasha and let her know that her cover was blown, which makes a lot of sense. And there's just really good conversation between Jason and Tasha that I love.
When Dawson and
there's no Dawson. Andrew.
I'm sorry, I keep reading Dawson. When Donovan leaves and it's just Tasha and Jason. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, talking about Tasha needing a vacation and, coming back to Odyssey, and Tasha's kind of like, well, maybe I'll take you up on it, which is weird because there are, episodes where Tasha does come to Odyssey because she needs a vacation, and they're treated like it's the first time when it's actually not the first time at all.
Well, she's here currently, but she comes in this episode, but it's absolutely just for business.
Yeah, that's fair.
She doesn't even, get ice cream from Wit's End.
That we know of.
You're right.
But, and then that's when it cuts to Tom and Jason being back in Odyssey, right?
Yep. Jason's at Wit's End. And Mayor Tom Riley drops by to say hello.
Yeah, and they kind of tie that back in, and there's a whole little bit about Tom being mayor and all the pressures, and
then he has to leave because his constituents are outside.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Is this an angry mob situation?
It just sounds like I'm picturing a bunch of reporters with mics pointing them at the Wit's End window.
Yeah, exactly. Either that or if by constituents you mean fellow city councilors are just taking a walk by Wit's End. That would be the other scenario.
Yeah.
Which leaves that, so this conversation establishes a couple things. Jason is staying at Wit's End instead of Wit's house, which is kind of weird, to be honest with you.
Yes.
But he's
I've never gotten the impression from Wit's End that there is a place to sleep.
Yeah, no. I mean, he's
of
definitely
all
just
the things in that massive building, a place to sleep does not appear to be one.
Nope. That would be that'd be too much to ask.
But yeah, he's staying there, and Jack is moving in to Whit's house.
Mm-hmm. Yep, because it's like Jack is officially moving to Odyssey. He's got all the paperwork finalized, and he's coming, which is cool. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah, we like Jack. Yeah.
And there's a bunch of unopened mail, and that's Eugene kind of waltzes in and starts talking about all the unopened mail.
And this is like our first real interaction between Jason and Eugene.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason's definitely he's the quick-witted spy and whatnot, but also has kind of that small town feel to him always, which the show does a really good job with. But he's very down to earth, a la Tom Riley, not crazy person Eugene. Despite him being very smart, he doesn't wear his smarts as a badge in the way Eugene does.
Yeah.
So their interactions are fun.
Yeah, no, and especially because Jason, when he's in Odyssey, is kind of pretending to be his dad, to be honest with you. There's a lot of that.
Definitely read it that way.
There's a lot of him just being very understated, despite the fact that he's literally a spy. And we get the phone bit again.
Oh my word!
Where the phone that's not connected to anything starts ringing, and and this is this awkward bit where Gene's like, I need to look at that, and Jason's like, no, don't touch my phone.
Yep. So Jason kicks out Eugene, stays there with the package that Tasha shipped to Whit, and the phone picks it up, expecting it to be Donovan, and it's Tasha! And she's pulling the same bit as last episode, wherein she is outside the window.
Yep.
I mean, she doesn't quite do the walk up behind him, but
basically
it's the same idea.
Yeah.
And so
she's consistent.
So I
respect that.
He goes down, and she tries to play it off oh yeah, I decided to take you up on your advice and come visit Odyssey.
Yep.
And then Jason's like, did you, or did you want this? And opens up his trench coat, and the package is there.
Get roasted.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Tasha's there. So they're talking about it because I don't know. Is this when Tasha mentions that she doesn't really trust Donovan because she knows somebody double crossed her? So she sent it to the only person she knew she could trust, which was Jason's dad, obviously Whit.
Yep.
And it's kind of this weird thing because it's well, why would you, how do you know him? I mean, obviously we know he's an agent, but how does this all work together? And then Tasha's the A stands for Avery.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jason explains he does, he and Whit decided to not really tell each other about any of their spy stuff so that if one was compromised, the other one wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And so
which is kind of cool. I kind of think that's really cool.
Yeah. So, yeah. The A. Remember when I told you that the T stands for Tasha? Well, the A stands for Avery. That's
Why
one of
wouldn't
those,
they just be John?
Because TJ418 sounds dumb.
Yeah, I guess. Oh, boy.
But it doesn't. But, But then you wouldn't have... You wouldn't have Rukita.
Yeah, that's
You would have Rukija.
Rukaja.
Rukija? Yeah.
Those are
bad.
words.
Rukita. So yeah. It's
it's also basically name dropped that she used applesauce to develop it.
Yes.
Which is obviously a callback to the Bite Applesauce episodes that we covered earlier. Jason doesn't know about applesauce, and that's why they're, that's how it kind of gets exposed that Jason and his dad don't really talk about work stuff together.
Right. Yeah, the whole A stands for Avery thing is, like, glued in my mind. I couldn't have said, though, that we found it out, like, at this point.
Mm-hmm. But you remembered that.
It kind of caught me off guard. Oh, yeah, as soon as TA-418 was mentioned, or even Rukita, I was like, Tasha and Avery. I know that one.
Yeah, I didn't remember that, actually.
Well, you're not as true a fan as I am.
That's true. Well, at least not of these episodes. You are big into these episodes.
Yeah, I always liked the more actiony spy episodes, and you like stuff with Bernard.
100%.
So yeah, then so they don't want to.
They want to keep the formula in a safe. They need to put it somewhere safe, so they put it in a safe. Which,
and Jason's like, I've got there's a safe at Wit's End. I'll stick it in there. And I'm like, really? Like, that's gonna be secure? And then we find out
it's a slip of paper. Oh, yeah. You could literally hide it in a book anywhere, and nobody would ever find it, and it would be fine. Or like under your mattress or something like that.
It's a package. I don't think it's a slip of paper. I think it's like a packet full of formulas.
Oh, well, okay. So hide it under your bed.
I mean, the safe seems like a good spot. I just didn't think the Wit's End safe was going to be as secure as it was.
Well, yeah, that's my argument as well, where it's like, wow, if somebody were to try and come look for this, where are they going to check first? The safe. Like,
yeah. And so then Tasha and Jason just kind of hang out for a bit, and we don't get to see that, so I guess that's kind of where you could say, well, Tasha's been around, Odyssey a bunch, but, like, we
Not
don't
really.
see it on screen, so
no.
Does it count? And then,
Donovan calls Jason, right?
Yes. Donovan, his phone starts ringing, and Jason picks it up and says, hey, Tasha, and Donovan's like, oh, so she is there.
Yeah.
And he's like, shoot, it's Donovan.
And his thick Irish accent.
Jason's a Scottish. Jason's an agent, and he's just picking up the phone with so much arrogance, like, I know who this is gonna be. Anyways.
I'm surprised there's no, like, code word to pick up the phone, like, I almost said, like, Papa John's Pizzeria, but, like, something like that, where it's like...
Yeah.
I feel like the secret agent would definitely have some sort of fake business that you have to answer the phone.
Right. Hello, this is Frank's Breakfast Inn.
Yep. Frank's Breakfast Inn. Works perfect.
Yeah.
Or what are they? They're NSA, right?
Yes. Or maybe not, but because Donovan's Scottish, as we've been over.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so what's next? So Donovan explains that Mustafa has escaped.
And then Tasha didn't tell Donovan that she was going to Odyssey.
Right. And Donovan's like, oh, well, they're going to come after Tasha. Mm-hmm. And the phone rings in the other room, and Eugene's like, hey, Jason, it's Tasha. And Jason's like, all right, Donovan, I'm going to go hang up and talk to Tasha. I'll let her know. He walks in there, and it's Mustafa.
Yep. And then Mustafa's like, I'm
going to talk to you directly this time.
So she can't use her eyes.
Yeah. No room for the blinky blinky. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. Here's probably my biggest gripe with this episode.
You got a gripe to grind.
Mustafa has kidnapped Tasha to get to Jason.
Yes.
Just kidnap Jason.
Yeah.
Like, I hate this using Tasha as bait maneuver.
Yeah, well,
like, I get why it's here, and it works for the story, but it just makes me a little bit upset, because, like, last episode, she got captured, and she was kind of indirectly used as bait for Jason, but that wasn't really the point of it, and she still was very capable on her own.
Yeah, well, she pretty much orchestrated her own escape.
Right. But this episode, she does have a little bit of that, like, Mary Jane syndrome, where she's like, I'm now, like, a bit damsel in distress, and I'm just being used to get to the person, like, so that the villain can get to the person who loves me.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, especially in the scene with the gazebo where it's like, give me the formula or she dies. And she's like, no, Jason, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's just, it's disappointing to me to see Tasha kind of reduced to that.
Well, pretty much everybody in Odyssey is at some point.
I know.
It's the depressing reality.
That doesn't mean I can't hope and dream, Andrew.
That's true. That's true. There's still a lot of new Odyssey we haven't listened to. Maybe they get better at that.
Oh boy, maybe. And so this is the point now where,
well, so they're supposed to meet up at the gazebo at midnight to bring to exchange the formula.
Right.
That's the Mustafa situation. And then Jason talks to Donovan
the
about it.
Formula was sent there.
Yeah.
We don't know how. It's later explained that he has the phone bugged.
Yeah.
But yes, and so Donovan, so Jason calls Donovan, is like, explains the situation, and Donovan's like, well, it doesn't matter because, like, the whole formula doesn't exist anywhere. And Jason's like, yeah, it does. It's in a package that I have sitting like 100 feet from me. And Donovan's like, oh, shoot. Well, I'm going to send my agent Delta 24 to come and get that formula. And,
Delta 24.
And you're just going to have to let Tasha die.
Yep.
And she knew the risks. And Jason's like, well, I don't work for you, so I'm just going to do this. Yeah.
He pulls the whole, like, I don't work for you anymore, so I can do whatever the heck I want, and then just goes completely rogue.
Yep.
And then he has
but not entirely rogue.
Nope.
Like, it's played off as though he's going completely rogue, but then it's later. Maybe this was all part of his plan?
Partially.
So his idea is he's like, well, Mustafa's not gonna know what the formula is, so I'll just give him a fake one. And then he goes...
Obviously, there's the whole safe situation, which I think he also knows is his backup, right?
Right. And he also maybe expects Philby to be there. That part I'm not sure about. If Philby's a surprise to Jason, or if he knows about that. That part's unclear. But so Jason's got this idea of like, I'll just, make a fake formula. Mm-hmm. And so he shows up to Mustafa and pulls out this fake formula. And Mustafa's like, well, I wouldn't know if it was a fake formula or not. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to call your bluff. And I'm going to gag Tasha, threaten her with a knife, and that is going to make you give me a real formula and not a fake one. And I was like, this plan makes no sense.
Yeah.
Like,
you could just keep lying.
You call her bluff by being like, there's no incentive for Jason to actually give him the right one. Like, he could just take him back to the safe and have a fake one in there. Mm-hmm. Or be like, no, the one in my pocket actually is the real one. And Donovan would have no way of and Mustafa would still have no way of knowing. Like, it doesn't work as a, like, call your bluff scene.
No, it doesn't. Because he knows.
Donovan didn't, like, flip the table in any way. He's still in the same position.
Yeah.
Like, Jason knew Tasha was going to die if he didn't give him the formula, and he still was going to give him a fake formula.
Yeah.
Because he has no way of knowing. It's a bad scene.
It's a bad scene. It is quite a bad scene. And then, basically, Jason caves and is like, fine, go, I'll take you back to Wit's End. There's a safe that only I can open because it's a special key that is voice activated. So, we'll go do this. And then, it's like, Mustafa says something because Mustafa has a thick accent and it's like, we're going to the Wit's End or something like that.
Yes.
And I don't know. It was just an interesting moment that I remember pretty distinctly.
There you go.
And so now we're back at Wit's End, presumably in Wit's office with Jason, and then Tasha's tied up and Mustafa's there. Is Abdul there in this one? At this scene?
No, Abdul is like outside in the car.
Yeah, Abdul is outside in the car.
So,
and then
yeah.
Delta 24 busts in.
Yep, and it's Philby.
Yep.
Which is really weird.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just call him Philby, but whatever.
Well, no. But, like, Philby worked for the European Security Agency, not for Donovan. Mm-hmm. And he was seemingly high up. Like, he was Blackgaard's boss.
Yeah.
So why is he being sent here as the field agent? We kind of figure that out in a bit.
Know. I do not know.
It actually... I'd argue it isn't super clear whether or not Philby was the one that Donovan sent. He might not be.
Yeah, he could have been hijacked.
Because we find out that Philby is a bad person.
Yep.
Which we alluded to in the previous episode with my ridiculously in-depth teardown, where I was like, Philby doesn't seem to be adding up quite right. This is why.
This is why. He's
so
a
Jason,
turncoat. Yeah,
Jason does essentially a hero monologue. Mm-hmm. Like, he does the whole villain, like, this is the whole plan thing, but from the hero's perspective, which I liked a lot.
Yeah.
It just fits his personality well.
Yeah.
And so, at this point, Philby has cuffed Mustafa.
Mm-hmm.
And Donovan... So, yeah, Philby says that he was sent by Donovan.
Yep.
Maybe. But Jason's then like, wait, on the phone earlier, Mustafa said, like, hey, watch out, like, don't use those eye tricks or whatever. Mm-hmm. And how would have he known about that? The only people who figured that out were me and Philby. And I definitely didn't tell him, so Philby's the double agent. And then Philby's like, yes, I am a double agent.
Yep. Yep, basically Philby double crosses him and he's like, yes, I work for Red Scorpion, and then
Yep.
And then Mustafa's like, now let me out of these handcuffs, and Philby's like, no, and then Mustafa's like, well, let me out of these handcuffs, and then Philby's like, no, I don't think I will.
Yes. And he's the only one in the room with a gun.
Who is?
So Philby.
Oh, Philby, yeah.
So obviously Mustafa had one, but now he's cuffed.
Room full of
although he might have
agents.
just had enough.
Nobody has a gun.
I don't know. No, he did say that he had a gun because when Jason was like, okay, untie Tasha now, he's like, yeah, fine, I can still shoot her from across the room.
Yeah.
But Jason and Tasha don't have guns. I mean, I guess Tasha's was probably confiscated, and Jason's a good person and also no longer an agent.
Yeah.
So maybe he's not carrying one. Anyways.
Wait,
so
but doesn't
Philby's,
he turn in his badge and his gun at the end?
Yeah, maybe he just doesn't have it on him. I don't know. So Philby's the
All
only
of this
one.
could have been solved if Jason had a gun.
Yeah. But then he'd be a villain.
That's true.
And so yeah, Philby points his gun at Jason and Tasha, gets them to put on cuffs. And then Tasha says to Philby, like, are you working for Blackgaard?
Yeah.
Which literally makes no sense.
Yeah.
I don't understand why she's making that question, other than, like, the audience knows that Blackgaard was previously a villain, but, like...
she has no clue about that.
Like,
and also...
Blackgaard's dead. You found out he was a good guy, even
and
though
he worked under him, so, like, why the heck would... Like, why?
He worked below Philby, and he also worked below Mustafa.
Yeah.
So, like, he's clearly not. Like, I don't know. It's nonsensical, and it's weird, and it bothered me.
Yep. And so then Jason goes to open the safe to get Philby the formula for TA418, and I have no clue what happens here, other than somehow it seems to take out Philby.
Yeah, it seems like smoke and explosions.
Yeah.
Jason makes a comment that, like, right behind the wall of that safe is a computer room that runs everything, which is like the whole applesauce thing. So it seems kind of like when Wit's End went haywire, but this is only in one room, and also it seems to be slightly more deadly.
Yeah,
but
no.
like,
well,
so
this is
it's
definitely
somehow,
a program. Like, this is definitely
Yeah.
a self-destruct type of like program. So maybe there's like electrical currents going through the safe and he gets
Right.
electrocuted. Maybe there's,
Yeah.
I mean,
And,
presumably like there is smoke and stuff like that. But like, I
Yes.
kind of imagined one of those Star Wars like assassin droids, like kind of from like the Mandalorian, the ones that are really skinny with the long skinny
Yeah,
head,
yeah.
and they just kind of
The
like
IG
spin
units.
around and just do and just get everybody. But clearly that's not what's happening here.
No.
Because nobody dies.
Yeah, well, and only Philby really gets knocked out.
Well, and I think it's because Philby was the one opening it and he was super close to it, because Jason does tell Tasha to get down. And
Gotcha.
also,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like Jason knows what's going to happen, so he's prepared for it. Tasha gets down, and Mustafa's presumably on the ground.
No, that's fair.
So the only loose end is if Mustafa's like not on his knees, which
Yeah.
maybe, I don't know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then
Bob
Mustafa
Luttrell
just
voices-
yeets out the window.
Yeah. That's fair. And he's handcuffed and he jumps out a 2-story window.
Yep. And they're like, "What is he doing? He jumped out a 2-story window."
I know. I love it.
And then he keeps grunting, and like they're like, "Oh
Yep.
my gosh, he's limping to the car."
Yep. And he hops in the car with Abdul.
Yep.
Then Tasha's like, Jason, go after him. Once again, Tasha, you can do it.
You got this, girl.
But
You got your
but
big
then-
girl panties on.
But then
You can
he's
do it.
like, no, I'm handcuffed.
Yeah.
And then he calls the police
Yep.
so he can make a call with handcuffs on, but cannot run after Mustafa with handcuffs on.
Voice activation, bro. We got Mabel situation going. Hey, call the police.
Yeah, I guess.
That's the only explanation.
I really hope no one was listening to this out loud and just had their phone call the police.
Don't worry, my phone's also on, and so it didn't do anything. So I don't think I did
Okay.
anything to anybody else.
All right.
Hey,
Maybe maybe I'll just beep it for the fun of it. So what was I gonna say? Oh, so yes. Then Abdul, Mustafa's like, Abdul, take me to, the airport, or well,
Yeah.
I don't know what he says.
Yeah.
And Abdul's like, no.
No.
He's like, you work for me. He's like,
Yeah.
no.
No.
And then the door opens.
And guess who he
And
works for?
Black.
Blackgaard.
No. To quote Mustafa, Blackgaard.
Blackgaard. And yep.
So, and then Blackgaard villain monologues explains that he was injected with vitamins, not Ruku. That's what Abdul.
Yep, and ever
injected
since he got out of the morgue, he feels better than ever.
Yep.
And the ESA thinks that he's dead, so he's immune from anything, like he's not being
Yep.
followed and anything like that.
Yep.
And then he
and
basically-
Mustafa's like,
tells Abdul to kill Mustafa.
yeah. Well, first Mustafa's like, great, then we can continue our plan. And
Yeah.
Blackgaard's like, no, you don't understand.
You're so dumb.
Blackgaard's like, or Mustafa's like, no, there's this TA-418 and this whole thing. And Blackgaard says, I know about TA-418. I've always known. Do you think I ever cared about your petty revolution or your mosquito of a group? There's so much more going on here than you can possibly understand or even imagine, but you have fulfilled your purpose, and for that I thank you. Of course, you stabbed me with a needle, and for that, make it look like an accident, Abdul.
What a bamf. A true bamf.
It is
Just
amazing.
Killing it. He's just like, you are dumb. You done got played. Murk him.
Yep. And, yeah. So.
And then he goes,
Blackgaard
and then he
is
drives
not-
off,
it
and he does
was
the
not-
whole, cracks his back thing. He's like, it's good to be back again.
Yes. Very
Oh,
much
so good.
And Blackgaard did not, so he wasn't working for Red Scorpion or the ESA. He was playing everyone,
Yep.
which is classic Blackgaard,
Yep.
and it's great. And I love that they made us feel for him, and that Jason is like gonna continue to think that like he was a good person.
Yeah.
But no, Blackgaard's secretly a villain.
Yep.
He stopped Jason from getting injected with vitamins.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we then hear
Jason and
Donovan
and Tasha, right?
Yep. Donovan explains that the car must have hit a patch of ice and went over a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how like Abdul and Mustafa died.
Mm-hmm.
Although he just says Mustafa, I guess they probably didn't find Abdul's body because Abdul's not dead.
Yeah.
But it was a good thing of like make it look like an accident, and then the next scene we hear how it was made to look like an accident.
Yep. Love that expositional dialogue.
Yeah. And then Jason turns in his fancy phone.
Yep.
And explains that he's giving all of this up because Whit asked him to work at Whit's End.
Yeah, because he's like, well, why are you're so good at it? Why are you giving it up? And he's like, my dad asked me to. I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, man.
Aww,
that's
so
sweet.
cute. I love it.
Yeah.
And then
then Donovan's like, have a good life.
Yep.
Like, wow. That's
and Tasha's like,
final.
did he just thank you and like say goodbye? Wow. Which I think is great.
Yeah.
That like even that is like such a positive. And then Tasha leaves, but not before she gives Jason a note, which in Morse code says "I love you."
And then
Jason says,
yep.
"I love you too, Tasha."
And that's where it
And then
ends.
we hit credits. Man, I love this episode.
Yeah, this one's real good. I mean, the last episode was okay, like it was good, but part 2, man, it's so good.
Man,
Ugh.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad we're covering this. I'm so glad we're talking about Odyssey in general.
Yeah.
But especially Blackgaard and Jason Spy stuff. I've got such a soft spot for that.
Yeah, no, it's these are like some of my favorite episodes as far as like the Jason Spy stuff is such a strange thing that is so different from most of Odyssey that they do actually pretty well.
Yeah, it is. Kevin T. Porter of the Good Christian Fun Pod.
Kevin Torque Porter?
Possibly. Made a comment on a recent episode where he said it's as though like the creators of Adventures in Odyssey really like made a bet or like made a like asked a genie to allow them to write a spy show that millions of people would listen to. And in return, they got like, yes, you can, but it has to be this G-rated kids show.
Yeah.
Have fun. And like, there is something to that where it's like all of these episodes are so well made and are dealing with like some serious stuff. And you're like, how did this end up being like a show that focused on the family puts out?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I was thinking about that when I was listening to it. I was just like, this is like so incredibly different from all other Odyssey.
Yeah, it's different from other Odyssey, and it's like Odyssey is so well made, and I never thought about it from a creative standpoint. Like we've talked about all the voice actors and how great they are, and how like they go on to work on other stuff as well. But like for the writers who are actually making the show, it's so wild that like this is like what all their talents and skills are used for.
Yeah,
like it made a really good show that you and I loved and still think about regularly and made a whole podcast about.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I don't know. Like would have anybody on this creative team made a really good movie or a TV series or like that? Like, I don't know.
You certainly don't know. And I don't know that there's really a great way of knowing. I mean, obviously, unless some of them have left and move on to do other things. But
yeah,
I mean,
Well-
yeah, Odyssey is very interesting in that within its own universe, it does so many different things. And that was the funny thing, because I was listening to it, and somebody who doesn't listen to Odyssey walked into the room with me, and I was just sitting there thinking, while I was taking notes, and and I was like, wow, this does not sound like Odyssey really at all.
Right.
Like, this
right.
sounds like
Well,
actually very intense, and this is a genuine, like, this is a kid's show. Like, there's mostly, morals and stuff like that. And I will say, the Chris wrap-up was a bit upsetting. It's basically just like, people do bad stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
The end.
Yep. So there's two things we want to do. Kind of wrap this up. If you're done,
I'm good.
We've got discussion questions.
Yep.
But before we do discussion questions, there is a lot about the writing of this episode in Adventures in Odyssey, the official guide. And so I'm going to read/paraphrase a lot of that.
Okay, go for it.
So yeah, they wanted this episode to, as an introduction to Jason, reintroduce Blackgaard and set the stage for a final dramatic showdown. They decided that as soon as Whit had left Odyssey, that Blackgaard was going to return. Phil Lawler wrote the 2-part episode from outline to final draft in just over a week, which is wild, considering
final
how
draft?
complex this is. The early draft had a slightly different climax for this episode, for part 2. So, in the original version, Tasha actually showed up to Odyssey with Molly. And it was Molly who was kidnapped, rather than Tasha. It says that Molly was kidnapped while visiting the Wonderworld treehouse, which I think is really interesting, but also, like, this episode must have been so different.
Yeah.
And Mustafa threatens to drown Molly near Trickle Lake.
Wow.
Yeah. Jason and Tasha rescue her, but Mustafa makes off with the formula. And the episode ends with Blackgaard taking the formula from Mustafa.
Interesting.
There was even a version of the show where Jack Allen was an NSA agent, which I think is insane.
Yeah.
And then
I'm really glad they didn't go with that. I'm really glad they didn't.
oh, with Jack, yeah, no, it would have been too much.
It's just like,
I think-
everybody's an agent. Connie's an agent, actually. Alex Jefferson, agent.
Yeah, the Molly capturing thing actually, I think, kind of would have worked. But like, I get
definitely.
why they didn't do it. So they talk about, like, they were just worried about how scary this was and violent this was going to be, of having, like, a young girl being threatened by a terrorist on a show that's for kids.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
And that whole thing where, like, they make reference in this episode subtly to torturing Molly
Yeah.
to get the information about the package. Like, that's how they knew
Yeah.
the package was being sent to Odyssey. And it was actually recorded, Donovan telling Jason that they had found Molly's body in a river. But they did not put that in the episode because, once again, they were like,
This is
all
a
right,
kid's
like,
show.
this
We
does,
can't do
like,
this.
it does tie up a loose end that people will be wondering about, but it's also incredibly violent.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole finding the body of, like, a 12-year-old girl, that's a little rough.
Yeah. So that's kind of the big thing for that.
You ready to
Which
move on to
I-
the discussion questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
So, Dylan, do you think
Yes.
what Jason did for a living is good or bad work for a Christian?
Well, Andrew. I don't think...
It's a hard question, I will say that.
It is, because I'm like, well, do I want to just, like, come down hard on the stance of, like, no, it's a bad job for everyone?
Yeah.
Because, like, I do understand the general necessity, I guess, of secret agents, but, you know, having a career built on lies doesn't seem like that's healthy regardless of who you are.
No, not at all.
But also, like, Jason seems to be handling it okay. Like, we don't have any moments in these episodes where I'm like, oh, shoot. Because, like, also, like, at this point in the show, Jason's not, he hasn't even been a Christian character, really.
No.
Like,
no.
These episodes are so caught up in the spy of it all. We don't know what Jason's faith is here. Like, he's not taking, you know, breaks to pray, and like it's not it's so far disconnected from that like, I don't think that point blank this is a bad job for a Christian or a good job. Mm-mm. I think it matters on how the person is handling it and how they are able to reconcile that for themselves. Yeah. And Jason doesn't seem to be struggling to handle that. He seems to be leaving the business not because he's in a moral quandary, but just because he's ready for a slower part of life, and his dad asked him to do this. So I don't know what to say beyond that, other than like, he seems to be managing it fine and not have an issue with it. So I don't know why I should have an issue with it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm kind of the mindset where I just like, I mean, personally, I'm very, you know, like, definitely non-lethal violence. Like, I'm, like, I don't see how, you know, I mean, okay, I shouldn't say it like that. Personally, for me, I would never look to harm anybody for the sake of self-preservation, because that's just not what I see exemplified in Jesus on the cross. So, like, if we're bringing faith into it, like, yeah, I don't know that I could have a job that required me to kill people, but, like, if that's not a part of the requirement, which Jason doesn't kill anybody, you know, it's, you know, that's fine. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have a terrible problem being a police officer just because, you know, the goal is to bring them into custody, and I've got no issue with putting bad people in jail. Just killing them that I'm not so into. So it you know, it's hard, and like you said, with all the lying and stuff like that, I mean, I could never be an agent. Good God, I've got the biggest mouth on the planet. It wouldn't be good. But yeah, I don't know. As far as like faith specific stuff, I think it's very situation specific, and depending on the person, you know, if you can wholeheartedly support the organization that you're working for and the work that they're doing, then like, if you think that they're working for the greater good, then like, yeah, maybe it is okay to lie in that sense, you know, if it's for the greater good.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it's not a thing where I'm like, well, being a spy and being a Christian are two mutually exclusive things. But it is a thing where, like, because of my faith and where I'm at with stuff, I would not want to be in a position of, you know, doing harm to other people.
Exactly. Well, and there's a lot to be said for, at least in this episode, what is shown is, yeah, there's a lot of harm. Like, presumably Molly got tortured. Mustafa, you know, probably beat up Tasha a good bit. You know, like, it's not, there's a lot of violence and stuff like that involved, and you got to be okay with that. And I don't think that they're mutually exclusive, like you said, but it's certainly not for everybody. Yeah. And I think a part of my Christian morals has kind of made me soft to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah.
I don't know if go for it.
Andrew, is there such a thing as a synthetic virus in real life? Explain.
I'm pretty sure there's not such a thing as a synthetic virus in real life.
It's the funniest thing to me that there's a question for children that's like, is there a synthetic virus? Explain, child. Like, maybe it's trying to platform parents to assuage some children's fears. But it's really
definitely
funny to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you seem like a well-reasoned 10-year-old. Explain to me why or why not there are synthetic viruses.
Synthetic viruses. Well, and the thing is that viruses, if you know anything about them, they're super complicated, and the reason that there can't really be synthetic viruses is because they aren't really alive. Viruses aren't bacteria. They're different. They only exist within the context of the host. So,
Andrew, I think that's more reason to support a synthetic virus than a non, though.
Saying
that there can't be you just said there can't be a synthetic virus because they're not alive.
Yes. So
synthetic
what I'm trying to say is that like almost
alive.
all viruses
we don't
are
make
synthetic.
Living synthetics.
Yeah. That's a fair point.
like not to crush on the guy who actually went to, medical school, but
nursing school, all right. Not the same.
But like,
well, no, but if the point is viruses are really hard to understand, thanks coronavirus. Yes. They're really complicated and very strange, so it'd be incredibly hard to make them synthetically.
Yes, I'm with you. You just threw the living thing into there, and I was like, you make it sound as though if it was alive,
synthetic.
If it was alive, we'd be able to create synthetic stuff. But because it's not alive, we can't create it. And I was like, buddy, we can't create synthetic living stuff.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Anyways, and the last question. Why do you think some people want to do things to hurt their own country?
Power, money, and women, brother.
Yeah. Yep.
That's
about
it.
They want the control here.
Yeah, well, Mustafa clearly has a revolution that he's going for, and probably some moral high ground within that, and Blackgaard is very self-interested and clearly just wants to follow the power wherever it goes and wherever it leads, so, it's pretty clear that it's... Yeah. We tell ourselves stories about the world around us to expunge our conscience of whatever horrible things we're going to do.
Yeah. I didn't think about these as necessarily anti-revolutionary episodes, but I guess they are.
Yeah, well, they're certainly anti-Nazi. I'm going to give them that.
Not the Nazi thing again.
Not the Nazi thing again. Yeah, I mean, that's all I gotta say. Do you have anything to add?
I do not. I really enjoyed this episode, and I cannot wait until next week. I'm not plugging anything. Are you plugging anything, Andrew?
Nah, I ain't got nothing to plug, brother.
Yeah, there are no new reviews. It's the middle of a pandemic, so we don't have new stuff to plug.
Yeah, I'm going to, once school ends, because it's a pandemic, hopefully I'll be able to delve into some of my other podcasts a little bit more intensely. Yeah. So that's exciting. But other than that, that'll be probably at least a month before anything comes out, just because I still have to finish school.
Right. Yep. So, it is, we'll be back in a week to talk about episode 293, A Code of Honor. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at WadFamChalkPod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. A Name, Not a Number, Part 2 was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wadfam Chalk Pod.